The gaming industry has always been a haven for buzzwords. Exclusive, launch title, no it isn't gambling, honest gov, you know the sorts of things. And one of the hottest buzzwords of the modern age is remaster. Gone are the days of new, interesting IPs being the most talked about release of any given year. It's all about nostalgia and reimagining what has gone before. Now, before you all start shouting at me, there's nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned remaster. Yes, I get the irony. It makes a lot of sense. It introduces a whole new audience to a great game of the past, and it gets people like me to repurchase a game I already own and love for a higher price than the original, and I will still love it. But I have to be honest and admit I have no idea how some of the remasters we've been treated to recently have been chosen. Some, like Age of Empires, Final Fantasy VII, Resident Evil, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Halo, they make sense to me and it's hard to argue. But who asked for an HD remaster of the Battle for Bikini Bottom? Why is Destroy All Humans so special? And why can't Bethesda just let Skyrim go? I'm not saying these are bad games, not at all. But it does seem that pretty much any game is fair, well, game for a remaster these days. So, with that in mind, I present to you my 5 games you may or may not have played or even heard of that absolutely deserve an HD remaster now. List. Thing. Number 1. Shufflepuck Cafe. In 1989, Christopher Gross, Gene Portwood and Lauren Elliott created Shufflepuck Cafe for Broderbund Software, and this was the game I spent a fair amount of my childhood playing. My nan owned an Amiga, and this was one of the games we always got out whenever we went to visit her. It was tremendous fun and utterly infuriating at the same time, and it was one of the first games that I have ever played that felt like you needed real life skill to win, and by God did winning feel good. Now, before everyone jumps down my throat in the comments, yes, I know that Shufflepuck Cantina exists, but that is a whole new game from a new developer, so not a remaster of the original. So I reckon I'm good. If you disagree, you know where the comment section is. Shufflepuck Cafe was one of those games that didn't need a massive backstory or deep setting to make sense. There was one. You were an intergalactic salesman whose spaceship had broken down, so you landed on the nearest planet you could find and went into the nearest dive bar to use the phone. The bar is the eponymous Shufflepuck Cafe, and they agree to let you use the phone, if you can beat all 8 Shufflepuck players in the bar. Simple enough, right? The difficulty curve on this game is, simply put, shaped like the Great North face of Everest. There are 2 easy characters, one of whom is just a training buddy, and then it just gets more and more difficult from there. You lost. A lot. And I mean a lot. I mean Dark Souls level a lot. And this game even basically cheated with one of the characters. Seriously, if you can stop anything the psychic woman sends your way, then fair play to you. This game is very difficult, very repetitive, and very fun. And it's pure gaming. No career mode, no ridiculous mini-games, no fluff, no padding, just plain and simple air hockey. Yeah, it's actually an air hockey game rather than a genuine Shufflepuck game, but I guess Air Hockey Cafe wasn't as punchy a title. Variation of game modes is not a bad thing, but sometimes there can be too much choice, too many modes, and features that are spread thin, rather than just having a good, solid baseline that gives the player exactly what they want. Shufflepuck Cafe isn't big or especially clever, but it is very strong and does exactly what you expect it to do, and it's really fun and challenging. I think it's about time the original bar got to spruce up and open its doors again. Number 2. G-Police. 30th of September, 1997. Earth. Symbiosis Studios released one of the most technologically advanced games of its time. G-Police. Set in the year 2097 in generic Earth Future Number 3, you know, the one where Earth's resources have been utterly depleted and the big money corporations have taken over, you take on the role of Slater, no, not that one, a grizzled veteran who is investigating the apparent suicide of his sister. Slater suspects there is foul play and he has joined the voluntary G-Police, the G standing for government, because of course it does, and has travelled to the domed cities on the moon Callisto, where you take him through various missions and attempt to uncover whatever conspiracy there is. That last sentence might sound vague, but that's deliberate, because the story is the reason this game needs a remaster. The gameplay is standard, the graphics are good for the time. In fact, the level of detailing was so high that to allow the game to run smoothly on the PS1 system, the draw distance had to be considerably shortened. But what really set this apart of me, even as a mere 8-year-old gamer, was just how engaging, well-paced, well-written and well-acted the story was. The cutscenes for the time were also very high quality, and the atmosphere that surrounded everything was perfectly dark and suspenseful. There was also a sequel, G-Police Weapons of Justice, which also stands up as a very fine example of early console game design, so that's technically 2 games that deserve a remaster, but it's my list, so... G-Police, even today, excites me when I pick up the controller and start it again. It's like a good book, and it deserves to be read by a whole new generation. Number 3. Sled Storm. In 1999, Electronic Arts, that's what they were called back then, so stop typing "it's just EA" in the comments, released something very unusual on the PS1, a game based around snowmobile racing. Gameplay-wise, Sled Storm is very fun, easy to pick up but challenging to master, but really nothing especially original. Other than the use of snowmobiles, or sleds, this game isn't different from titles such as Tony Hawk's or SSX. In fact, the PS2 sequel, infuriatingly also called Sled Storm, was said to be a less polished version of SSX. You race around various snowy circuits in a championship-style format, and when you find yourself in the air, you perform, or attempt to perform, a number of tricks to earn points and money to buy upgrades for your sled. Now, you might well be saying, but we've got Tony Hawk's Remastered, why bother with an obscure PS1 title that's so similar? But that's precisely my argument. It's in that genre of games, and it absolutely deserves to be treated like it is, so it should get a remaster. It's a good, solid game, and while we do have a number of games that give us fun in the snow, nothing quite captures the sense of fun and excitement that Sled Storm brings to the table. Plus, you know, snowmobiles. This game was very much my go-to pick-up-and-play game, and the hours I spent perfecting my Saran wrap and one-handed Superman moves were certainly not wasted. The environments were amazingly well crafted for the time, and these alone deserve to be re-rendered in a modern engine. The fact that the rest of the game is so good is purely a bonus. As a side note, Sled Storm has one of the best soundtracks of its generation, featuring Econoline Crush, Uberzone, Easy Rollers, and Rob fucking Zombie. And as an added bonus, the game disc doubles as a CD, so you can jam along whenever you finish playing, which was a pretty cool feature back then. So come on EA, break out the sleds again. Number 4. Robot Wars Arenas of Destruction. In 2001, the TV series Robot Wars was one of the BBC's hottest commodities. Craig Charles, Philippa Forrester and Jonathan Pierce took to our screens every Friday night to introduce us to the amateur techno wizards who had built machines capable of utter destruction, if they worked at all, and possibly the craziest and wackiest robotics experiment ever undertaken became a household institution. So the natural development was, of course, to give us a game. And Climax Development, who went on to give us, amongst others, Silent Hill Origins, and Games Lab, a short-lived gaming arm of the BBC, clubbed together to create, well, if I'm honest, a distinctly average game that relied on its IP to drive sales. The gameplay is clunky, the physics are laughable, and the pre-made robots are not only largely unlicensed, but also ridiculous. But that's not why it should be remade. It should be remade for 2 main reasons. 1. The robot building and battling genre of games has become, well, poor. Robocraft, Robot Arena 3 and other similar titles are more modern and have some good ideas, but they just don't have the quality to pull off what they're trying to do. And 2, to put it simply, despite all its flaws, Robot Wars AOD was charming, endearing and overall a huge amount of fun. The robot building tools were limited, yes, but there was enough scope for you to create varied bots that suited the range of different competitions you would encounter, and you could even buy some of the celebrities of the TV show. Razor, Behemoth, Diator, Hypnodisc, the all-conquering Chaos 2, they could be yours to smash and bash other robots, including the house robots, into tiny pieces. The designs of the various arenas are good, if sometimes a little far-fetched, but they give off the idea that away from the TV cameras, there's this robot fighting underground. You know, like in that episode of Spaced. And while battling on a North Sea oil rig or a secret nuclear launch site is, let's be fair, ludicrous, the game gets away with it because it buys into itself wholeheartedly. It never tries to be anything other than it is, a fun game about a fun TV show. BattleBot games are few and far between, and while Robot Wars isn't exactly a beacon of excellence, it is certainly good enough to get the HD treatment for a brand new audience. You know, like the TV show did. Only better. Number 5. The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. There is a theory that movies make bad video games, and video games make bad movies. There's a lot of evidence for this being true, but somewhat surprisingly, the studio to buck this trend was EA, with their handling of The Lord of the Rings. Beginning with the action games, The Two Towers and The Return of the King, moving through the RTS masterclasses of Battle for Middle-earth 1 and 2, they finally arrived at the JRPG semi-open world adventure that is The Third Age. Released on PS2 and Windows in late 2004, it was a modest critical success. The graphics were very good, the original story, running parallel to the events of Tolkien's story and following a group of 6 new original characters from across the Middle-earthian spectrum, was engaging, and the gameplay and mechanics, while extremely close to Final Fantasy X, were solid. You got to visit the majority of the major locations throughout Middle-earth, even fighting alongside well-known and established characters at key moments in the war against Sauron, and there was also an evil mode, where you got to relive the battles you had previously fought, but as the minions of the Dark Lord, and yes, you absolutely got to control the Balrog. But while all of those come together to make it one of my personal all-time greatest games ever, they are not the main reasons I think an HD remaster is in order. After the Third Age, there was a distinct shift in the usage of the Lord of the Rings IP. We had Conquest, a Star Wars Battlefront clone by Pandemic Studios. Oh, if you haven't heard of them, it's because they are one of the many fine small independent studios closed by EA after acquirement for reasons. And then Warner Brothers took over and we got Aragorn's Quest, War in the North, Shadow of Mordor Don't Mention the Movies edition, and Shadow of Loot Boxes. Aside from the LEGO editions, we have yet to have another truly open world Lord of the Rings game. No, stop typing Shadow of Mordor is open world. Yes, it is, but it's just Mordor and not even all of it. A world as rich and as detailed as Middle-earth to play with, and all we have is the LEGO games as an open world representation. Yeah, I know that Lord of the Rings Online exists, but MMORPGs are a very different kettle of fish. That is why the Third Age is a prime candidate for an HD remaster. The game doesn't need it, it stands up on its own, but Lord of the Rings fans badly need it, because it is what we have been crying out for. Not only was it, in my opinion, the height of the Lord of the Rings in the domain of video games, but the Third Age was part of the last bastion of titles, where the big AAA companies were more focused on making good use of an IP and creating good games, above making cash grabs, weak tie-ins, and cookie-cutting formulaic titles that had little originality in plot or format. So there you have it. Those are my top picks for obscure-ish games that deserve an HD remaster. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to Bikini Bottom to see what it looks like in HD. I've been Chris for Invicta magazine, and thank you for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, please do give this video a like and a share. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and keep up with all our latest content. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, plus we stream regularly on Twitch, and you can find all those links in the description below along with our website. See you next time. Goodbye for now.